Steve, could you open up a window or two over here? It's real stuffy to me in here. Well, it was announced that, please, that I was going to be teaching this class. My smart aleck grandson, Jordan, came to me and said, Grandpa said, you're so old you could even write that book. Well, the bad thing is he was right. And to understand a lot of things in it, why you have to be old enough to write that book to be able to say, yeah, I've seen this actually happen. But I've got news for Jordan, and that is when he wakes up next Saturday morning, a married man, he's going to start in and he's going to learn more the first week in his life than he has learned all of his days on this earth. So as the next time we see him here, we'll understand there's a guy who knows a whole lot more than what he knows today. So he's got a grin on his face, but man, Jordan, you can't believe it. Okay. Thank you, Ron. Today we're down in chapter 2 and verse 18. And today we're going to get to the first great conclusion that Solomon is going to give us. Now, so far, we have taken our time in going through and analyzing and seeing some of the things that he has said, because it's very, very important for us to see that. Solomon has looked at life on this earth. He's the richest man that ever lived, I guess. He's the wisest man that ever lived. A tremendous amount of knowledge. He had everything that he could possibly have. And then he explains to us that I use this in a wise way. Since I have all of this wisdom and riches and I can do anything and everything that I want to do, he said, I decided that I would try to find out what is the best thing for a person to do on this earth, and if they're not striving to serve God. In other words, just leaving God out of the picture, what should you do? What kind of life would there be on this earth? Now, we hear this all the time of people saying, well, what is life all about? I don't know who I am. I don't know this or I don't know that. They're all saying the same thing, that here I am on this earth, and I really don't know what to do to find happiness. I ought to be able to find happiness. So that's what he's telling us. He said, I'm going to examine everything that you could examine to see how you can find happiness on this earth. And the idea is without God. Now, don't leave the wrong impression. Solomon believes in God. Solomon will even bring God into the picture today, and Solomon will tell us, now here's what God said. But his examination of life is in that way. All right? He has shown us you can't find happiness in knowledge or wisdom or mirth or parties, happiness, pleasure, wealth. You just can't find happiness in any of these things. They do not bring happiness. All right, today he's coming to the conclusion down here in verse 18. That is that he has just got through talking about that he has been able to, being the richest man in the world, he's been able to do more than anybody before him or after him. He has all of these riches, but now he's come to the conclusion, the end of his life, and here he's got a problem. He said, when you have all of this, here is your first problem. So think about it. And I hated all my labor, wherein I labored under the sun, seeing that I must leave it unto the man that shall be after me. And who knoweth whether he will be a wise man or a fool? Yet he will have rule over all of my labor, wherein I have labored, and wherein I have showed myself wise under the sun. This also is vanity. So now, he comes down to this, and he all of a sudden understands, I have this wealth, and just previous to this, he has said that the same thing happens to a wise man as to a fool, and that is that we all die. So he said, now here's the problem. Since you're going to die, here's the problem. You live on this earth, you work hard, you work with wisdom, you save your money, you become a very wealthy man, and now then what's the next step? You're going to die. And you are going to leave your wealth to somebody else. Now he said, who will it be? How do we know? Here it is, he said, I have used all of this with great wisdom, and now then, I'll take everything that I have earned, and I may have to leave it to a fool. Well, as we pointed out last week, somewhere along the line, a fool is going to get your money. So we just as well mark that down and say that's just part of the system. That you might say, well, I'm going to leave it to my kids, and they're very wise. Okay, that's fine. Then they're going to leave it to their kids. You say, well, they're very wise. Well, okay. Well, then they're going to leave it to their kids. And so it's not going to be long until there is a fool that pops up in your family. There's a fool, and all he does is take the money that you spent and goes, or that you saved, and goes out and spends it. Now, to you and me, we may think that's not a big deal. Well, give me riches, and I don't care who gets it afterwards. But look at it this way. Think about it in this way. Let's suppose that there was a system here in America where the government says, now you work for the first 70 years of your life, and you save all the money you want to save, do whatever you want to do, but at age 70, we're going to take all your wealth away. And we're going to give you an apartment uptown, and we're going to give you enough to live. But we're going to take all your wealth away. And we're going to take your money, and we're going to go out on the street, and we're going to start throwing it out to different people. It depends on how much you've got. If you've got hundreds of thousands, we'll be throwing $100 bills out. Everybody we see, we'll just be throwing them out. And we're going to give all of your money away in one day. Now, I want to know, how would you enjoy life? You're there and you're 35 or you're 40, and you say, well, you know, I got a chance to get this new job, and I could make more money, but I'd really have to work hard. I'd really have to pay the price. Well, go ahead, make more money, put it in the bank, and some of these days it's just going to be thrown out to the dope addicts and everybody else out there. Would you really enjoy that kind of a job? Would you really say, I want to do what I can do to save and have this money? Now, that really is what life is all about. Instead of 70, it's when you die. Then it's all taken away, and it's given to somebody, and it will end up in the hands of a fool. So, Solomon said, I looked at this, I began to realize this, and I hated my work. I said, what in the world? I didn't like it. That doesn't bring you happiness when you know that all of your achievements are going to have to be thrown out and given to a fool. Now he goes ahead and he says in 21, for there is a man whose labor is with wisdom and with knowledge and with skillfulness, yet to a man that hath not labored wherein he shall leave, therein shall he leave it for his portion. Now there are people who are smart, energetic, hard workers, wise, skillful, and they are able to accumulate some riches. But he said, they're going to leave it to somebody who doesn't have any of those things. He said, this also is vanity and a great evil, or a bad situation. So remember, his whole point is, if you try to find happiness in any of these things, it's vain. You're not going to be able to find it. I don't care how rich you are, because the richer you are, the more or bigger problem you have down at the end of your life. So he said, what hath a man in all his labor, and of the striving of his heart, wherein he laboreth under the sun? For all his days are but sorrows, and travail is grief. Yea, even in the night his heart taketh no rest. This also is vanity. So here is a wise man a businessman, and he labors all day, and then at night, it's on his mind. What should I do about this problem or that problem? I'm going to face it tomorrow, and out here in my company and all this, I've got to, and so when he lays down at night, he still is mulling over all of these things that he has gained, and now what's going to end up? He's going to work hard all day. He's going to spend some sleepless nights trying to work out problems for other people, and then he's going to die. And then he's going to give it to somebody who hasn't labored. So he said it's vanity. You cannot find happiness in that. So we look and we say, well, it's sure a bleak picture. Here it is, we can't find happiness in wisdom and knowledge and pleasure and riches and power, and we can't find happiness in these things. What is the purpose of life? What can I do to find happiness? Okay, here's the first big conclusion we've come to. See, the first one here. 24. He said, there's nothing better for a man than that he should eat and drink and make his soul enjoy good in his labor. This also I saw, that it is from the hand of God. So I said, my conclusion is this. You can work, you can become rich, but if you think that is what is going to bring you happiness, it's vanity. But he said there is something that you can do. You can work, you can do it skillfully, you can do it in a very sensible way. And he said, here's what you need to do. It's not that you end up with so much money in the bank, but it's that you enjoy the labor that you do. He said that is what brings happiness on this earth. Whether you're a poor man, whether you're a rich man, whatever it is, your reward in your work is by enjoying what you do and enjoying what you accomplish. And he said, that's it. So you can go through life, and you can be happy every day that you're out there working. You can be happy. You can be contented. Life can be good. But enjoy your work. Enjoy the skill that you have. Enjoy what you are accomplishing. And if you don't do that, there's nothing that's out there that really is going to bring you happiness. He goes ahead and he says, this also I saw, that it is from the hand of God. This is the way God means for it to be. God means for you to find happiness. He means for you to work. Work hard. But keep in proper perspective what you do. Enjoy your work. Don't work so that you will have so much money so that you can be happy when you get that amount of money. It won't work that way. In fact, it'll bring sadness. He said, for who can eat and who can have enjoyment more than I? Is there anybody in the world that can have more pleasure and enjoy more of the reward than what I can? For to the man that pleaseth him, God giveth wisdom and knowledge and joy. But to the sinner he giveth travail to gather and to heap up, that he may give to him that pleaseth God. Now, this is an interesting thing. He said God has this system. God has this system that as you're working, that if you determine you're going to live the way God would have you to live, you're going to not fall in love with great riches or great pleasure, but you're going to enjoy what God, the abilities God has given you to do and the job that you have. You're going to enjoy each day of your life. He said, God then will give you wisdom and knowledge and joy. God will provide those things. Wow. Now, a little while ago, we found out the more wisdom you got, the more problems you can see, and the more grief it will bring. You can't find happiness in wisdom or knowledge. But if you do it God's way, God will give you wisdom and knowledge, and now then, you can find happiness in it this way. It's when you bring God into the picture and do it the way God would have you to do, that's when you find it. Now, here's the unusual thing. You see, so far we've been talking about a righteous man. We've been talking about Solomon. He makes all this money, and then he's got to give it away to some fool. And there's just no happiness in that. Now, according to God's system, it also works the other way. He said, as we work and we enjoy our labor, and God gives us this wisdom and knowledge and joy, then he says, but to the sinner, but to those that don't obey God, now the reverse is true. God now will give them riches, but he heaps it up, and it's going to end up in the hand of a righteous person. And so a righteous person is going to get it. And you say, wow, isn't that something? The way things work in this world. Now, you remember he started out and he says everything goes round and around, the sun, the wind, and all this, and he brings all these things out. Now he said he's going to teach us, you're not going to figure this out just on your own, because this is the way God intends for it to be. And it's going to work both ways. So instead of us trying to beat the system and say, oh, I think I got it figured out, then you go this way, then you're in trouble, just like if you go that way. The only way to find happiness in this life is to do it in the way God tells us to do it, is to bring God into the picture. So he said, this also is vanity and a striving after the wind. So if unless we do what God tells us, enjoy our work, that's the main thing, be skillful, work smart, save your money, but always do it enjoying the day you do it, enjoying what you do. And if not, if you're waiting for that money to come rolling in to find happiness, it's a striving after wind. Now, in chapter 3, here is a group of verses that are very unique. Everybody in the world has heard these, quoted time and time again. And the reason that he's telling us this is in verse 1. He said, for everything there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. Now stop. That is a great, 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 gigantic statement. What does that statement mean? That statement means that we need to sit back and look at things out here and say, okay, what is taking place? Well, he says, for everything there is a season. Everything that happens, there is a proper time for it to take place. And for every purpose under heaven, a time for every purpose under heaven. Now, how many purposes are there under heaven? How many things take place under heaven? All right, we start out, and first of all, we might start thinking about all the good stuff. Well, that's one way of looking at it, but that's not everything under heaven. Look at what he tells us. He said, for everything you like, there is also a time for exactly the opposite, the thing you don't like. Notice how he puts it. He doesn't intend for us to stop and meditate and talk about each one of these things. He wants us to see them as a whole. It's just bang, bang, bang. A time to be born, a time to die. Now, we'll stop on that one. We say, okay, I can see that. Yeah, there's a time that a baby is to be born, and there's a time for a person to die. And if you don't die in your time, it's not a pleasant thing. So there is a time. See, there is a time. The old idea that we want to live just as long as we can possibly ink out a year of life and do everything we can do to find happiness in that. No, there is a time to be born, and there is a time to die. Accept that. A time to plant, and a time to pluck up that which is planted. A time to kill, and a time to heal. A time to break down, and a time to build up. A time to weep, a time to laugh. A time to mourn, a time to dance. A time to cast away stones, and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to seek, and a time to lose. A time to keep, and a time to cast away. A time to rend, and a time to sow. A time to keep silent, and a time to speak. A time to love, and a time to hate. A time for war, and a time for peace. What profit hath he that worketh in wherein he laboureth, in all that he laboureth? I have seen the travail which God hath given to the sons of men, to be exercised therewith. He hath made everything beautiful in its time. Now, he is showing us, as you go through life, accept things the way they should be. There's not a time to laugh and have a party all the time. There's a time for that. There's a time to laugh, and there's a time to cry. There's a time to embrace. There's a time not to embrace. There's a time to love. There's a time to hate. Look at life and go with the way nature teaches you should go. Go in that realm. Don't try to fight it. If you try to laugh at a time of when you should be weeping, all you're going to find is heartache. It's just a terrible situation, and vice versa. So he said, God hath made everything beautiful in its time. So now we sit back and we scratch our head. Okay. Now here we have this time for everything, and there's a time for it. And so what do? Well, I look at it and I accept that there is a time for these things to happen. And when they happen, I accept them as part of the system. It's just part of the system that we have in this world. You look back in the world, go back to any time in history you want to go to, 1,000 years before Christ or 1,000 years after Christ, and you compare it to today. What is the same? Well, what you will find is everything's the same. Everything. Some countries are at peace, some countries are at war. Some people are happy, some people are sad. Some people are stealing, some people are giving. And you go and you'll find people are always the same, and the events keep coming and going. But here's what you won't find. You won't find the same country ruling then still ruling today. That's an interesting thing, because that brings us down really to America. As you look at America, we get the idea that we are powerful. We're more powerful than all the rest of the world put together. And there's no doubt about that. If we get all of our bombs and all of our weapons and our planes, and the rest of the world doesn't even, they don't even have just a little bit of what we have. And you could say, and we have this and we have that. But now we come to the conclusion, therefore we will always be. No, that's not true. You see, there was a time when America was not. And there will be a time when America will not be. there'll be something else here. I have no idea what it might be. It'll probably, according to history, be something very, very bad. And then it'll go on and on and on. And who knows whether it will ever rise again? We don't know. Another country can become the champion of the world. Countries come and countries go. Just like people come and people go. And you can't stop it. But God hath made everything beautiful in its time. So when it's time, then it happens. And if we want to be happy, we're going to have to learn to put God in the equation and accept the fact that He is in control. Now he said, also He has set eternity in their heart, yet so that man cannot find out the work that God hath done from the beginning even unto the end. Now, God has made everything beautiful in His time. And he said there's another thing God's done. God has automatically set eternity in your heart. A lot of times we say we're born a blank slate, and so we learn everything. Well, that's true in what we're saying, as far as knowledge is concerned, arithmetic and so forth. But when a little baby's born, there is eternity set in his heart. Don't ever teach the little boy anything. And when that little fella gets at a certain age to where they can think maturely, they're going to say, I wonder what happened way back before. I wonder what will happen to me. Will I always be here? Or will I go out of existence? Now, all of a sudden, we're talking about eternity. We're talking about something that the human mind cannot conceive. And yet we're talking about it. That within itself is something. Talking about something that the human mind cannot conceive, and all the humans put together have never been able to come up with any picture or illustration or anything that would show you what eternity is, but yet it's put in the heart of every one of us. Every one of us wonders about that. What will happen to you? Are you just here for a little blip? Or will you always be here? Eternity. God has set eternity in our hearts. We all think about that. Now he goes ahead and he says, he has set eternity in our hearts, yet so that man cannot find out the work that God hath done from the beginning to the end. God has put this eternity in our heart, but He has also created this world so that man cannot find out what is in the beginning or what is in the end. You can't find out God's purpose. What makes it tick? Now, certain things you can find out, but you're never going to be able to find out God's purpose. God has created everything beautiful in its time. And He created man so that we examine it, we wonder about it, we think about it, we think about eternity, and yet we're never going to be able to figure it out. Every person that's ever lived has thought about their life the same way you've thought about it. What will happen when they die? Every person who's ever lived and ever died has known nothing more about it than what you know. And when your time comes, or between now and then as you're thinking about it, you're not going to come up with any idea that they didn't come up with back in Abraham's day. There's nothing new under the sun. Man is not going to be able to figure it out. Now, in verse 12, I know that there's nothing better for them than to rejoice and do good so long as they live. So he said, here is what man should do. Rejoice and enjoy life so long as you live. You're not going to be able to figure it all out. That's God's purpose. God has created the heavens, the universe, and so our purpose is to enjoy it while we're here. So he said, and also that every man should eat and drink and enjoy good in all his labor is the gift of God. That's what God has given us. God has given us a gift, and that gift is to be productive, to work. And so he said, that's a gift of God, and so use it. God has not given us all the ability to get rich or to have fun or this or that, but he's given us all the ability of having some kind of skill that we can enjoy what we do. So he said, eat and drink and enjoy all these things that you do. He said, I know that whatsoever God doeth, it shall be forever. Nothing can be put to it, nor anything taken from it, and God hath done it, and that man should fear before him. So God has made it this way so that human beings will search, you'll think, and you're going to come to this conclusion whether you like it or not. There's something out there that I don't understand. There is a cause out there. Something brought all of this into existence I don't understand. And he brought it, and he made it this way so that we'll fear before him. That which hath been long ago, and that which hath been long ago, and that which is to be, hath been long ago, and God seeketh again that which is passed away. So the earth just keeps going around, keeps going around. There'll be another generation 100 years from now. They won't know our names at all. The building won't be here. Everything that we've done will be gone. And they'll be sitting somewhere wrestling with the same problems that you and I are wrestling with today. They'll know there's something out there. Who am I? Where am I going? What is my purpose? What should I do while I'm here? And that brings us to the end today.